They rolled him in on a stretcher soaked red. A Navy SEAL, chest torn open by a bullet that had punched through muscle and lodged deep, every breath rattling like it might be his last. Blood seeped through layered gauze, dripping onto the ER floor as alarms screamed and medics shouted numbers that kept getting worse. Gunshot to the chest. Entry high. No exit. Pressure dropping. Move. Now. Doctors surrounded him, hands flying, voices sharp, trying to outrun the clock. The OR was prepped. Lights blazing, machines humming, scalpels laid out with practiced precision. Then the building shuddered. A deep, violent boom echoed through the hospital. The lights snapped off. Monitors went black. Ventilators died mid-cycle. Screens froze in silence as the main transformer outside exploded, plunging the entire hospital into darkness. For half a second, no one breathed. Then emergency lights flickered on and failed. "Switch to generators," someone yelled. The generators kicked in with a roar. And then, seconds later, they died too. Total darkness. No power. The wounded SEAL gasped, blood pooling faster now, time bleeding out with him. "We can't operate like this," a surgeon whispered. "We can't move him," another said. "He won't survive transport." Panic spread in the dark. Then a calm voice cut through it. "Turn on your phone." A rookie nurse stepped forward into the shadows, hands steady, eyes unafraid. "Hold the light right here," she said quietly. When the lead surgeon stared at her and demanded who she thought she was, she didn't look up. She just answered, "It's not my first time saving a SEAL in the dark. Before we begin, drop a quick comment. I'm watching." And hit subscribe. It tells the algorithm you want more stories like this. They rolled him in on a stretcher soaked red. A Navy SEAL, unconscious but fighting, chest torn open by a bullet that had ripped through muscle and lodged somewhere it didn't belong. Gauze was already saturated. Blood trailed off the wheels of the gurney and streaked the ER floor like the hospital itself was bleeding with him. "Gunshot to the chest. No exit. Pressure dropping. Prep the OR. Now." Doctors moved fast, voices sharp, hands practiced. This was controlled chaos, the kind they trained for. IV lines snapped into place. Monitors screamed numbers that kept sliding the wrong way. Oxygen hissed. Someone cut away his uniform, revealing a wound that looked wrong. Too clean, too deliberate. The rookie nurse stood off to the side, unnoticed. Ava Rios, blue scrubs, hair pulled back, clipboard in hand like armor. She watched the wound, not the blood. Watched the breathing, not the monitors. Something about the injury didn't sit right, but there wasn't time to explain instincts. They rushed him toward the operating room. Just as the doors swung open, the building shuddered. Not a tremor, not a flicker. A deep, violent boom rolled through the hospital like thunder trapped indoors. The lights snapped off. Monitors went black mid-beep. Ventilators died mid-breath. The hallway plunged into darkness so complete, it stole the sound with it. For half a heartbeat, no one moved, like the world itself had paused to see who would panic first. Then voices broke the silence. "What just happened?" "Power? Where's the power?" "Get emergency lights." Red emergency strips flickered on, and then failed. Total darkness. Someone swore under their breath. Someone else prayed. The stretcher wheels stopped moving. Outside, the hospital's main transformer had exploded. Inside, a Navy SEAL was bleeding out by the second. "Switch to generators," a surgeon shouted. A low mechanical roar answered back as backup power kicked in. Lights sputtered to life. Monitors blinked. The room exhaled. 3 seconds later, the generators died. Silence slammed back down harder than before. "No, no, no, no! They're gone! We lost backup!" Later, they'd find water in the diesel tanks. Sabotage. But right now, all they knew was this. No power. No imaging. No anesthesia. No time. "We can't operate like this," someone whispered. "We can't move him either," another replied. "He won't survive transport." The SEAL's chest hitched. Blood bubbled at the wound. His heart rate dropped again, slow and ugly. This was the moment hospitals feared, when training met reality and reality didn't care. Then a calm voice cut through the dark. "Turn on your phone." Everyone froze. Ava stepped forward. She took a phone from a doctor whose hands were shaking too badly to hold it steady, flicked on the flashlight, and angled the beam without being told. White light cut through the darkness, illuminating blood, skin, and the precise edge of the wound. "Hold it right there," she said quietly, not asking. The lead surgeon stared at her. "Rios, get back. You're not authorized." "There's no authorization without power," she replied, already pulling on gloves. "And he doesn't have minutes." The flashlight trembled. Ava reached up and steadied the doctor's wrist without looking at him. Her hands didn't shake. She leaned over the seal, fingers pressing gently but decisively along his ribs, counting breaths, ignoring the silence where monitors should have been. She listened with her ear, not a stethoscope, felt vibrations through bone and muscle. The surgeon swallowed. "Who trained you to—" She didn't look up. "It's not my first time saving a seal in the dark." The words landed heavy. A scalpel appeared in her outstretched hand before anyone remembered handing it to her. She made the first incision with terrifying precision, blood welling instantly. Someone gasped, someone else turned away. "Light," Ava said. The phone moved closer. She worked fast but not rushed, every movement deliberate. Muscle memory, battlefield memory, the kind that didn't come from textbooks or bright operating rooms. Then she froze. The bullet wasn't where it should have been. Her jaw tightened. "That's not right," she murmured. "What?" the surgeon asked. She leaned closer, eyes narrowing. The bleeding pattern didn't match a standard gunshot. The tissue looked wrong, discolored, angry in a way she recognized but hadn't seen in years. Her stomach dropped. "Poison," she said under her breath. The surgeon stiffened. "That's impossible." "No," Ava replied. "It's intentional." Before he could argue, her hands were moving again, adjusting, cutting deeper, exposing the bullet just enough to see the faint residue coating it. The seal's body jerked. His breathing faltered. "His vitals!" Someone started, then stopped, remembering there were no vitals to read. "Stay with me," Ava whispered, not to the room, but to the man on the table. Somewhere down the hall, security radios crackled to life. "All units. Lockdown initiated. Shooter still unaccounted for. Repeat, shooter still inside the building." The room went colder. Ava didn't stop. She extracted the bullet with a steady pull, dropping it into a tray no one remembered placing. Her hands moved to neutralize what she could, improvising with what little light and time she had. The flashlight flickered. "Don't you dare let that die," she snapped, sharp now. The doctor adjusted, eyes wide. In the darkness of a civilian hospital, a rookie nurse fought a war she thought she'd left behind, against poison, blood, and the clock. And somewhere in the same building, the man who caused all of it was still walking free. Ava didn't look up as she worked. But for the first time in years, the past wasn't knocking anymore. It was inside the room with her. And it wasn't done yet. The bullet clinked softly against the metal tray, a small sound that felt too loud in the dark. Ava didn't look at it again. She already knew what it meant. "Poison," she said, louder this time, so the room could hear her. "Delayed release coating. That's why his pressure keeps crashing." The lead surgeon swallowed. "That's not standard. It's not supposed to be," Ava cut in. "It's meant to kill after extraction. When the medic relaxes." The phone flashlight shook harder now. Sweat ran down the doctor's temple, catching the beam and flashing like static. Around them, shadows pressed in where machines should have been. No monitors, no suction, no backup. The seal's breathing hitched again. Short, shallow, wrong. Ava moved faster. She flushed the wound manually, working with the confidence of someone who'd done this with artillery in her ears and dirt in her mouth. Her fingers were red to the knuckles. Blood smeared her sleeves. She didn't notice. The surgeon leaned closer, voice tight. "If you're wrong, I'm not." She adjusted pressure, then reached for gauze without asking. It appeared in her hand anyway. Someone had started following her lead without realizing it. "Pulse?" she asked. A pause, then, "Weak. Thready." Ava nodded once. "He's fighting the toxin." Another beat, another hook of fear. "How do you know all this?" the surgeon asked. Ava didn't answer. She was listening, ear to chest again, counting breaths, feeling the subtle tremor beneath bone. The rhythm was familiar in the worst way. She'd heard it in Afghanistan, intense that shook with rotor wash, in places where there was never enough light. Down the hall, boots thundered. Security voices echoed, sharp and panicked. SEAL team just arrived. Lockdown confirmed. That made heads turn. SEAL team? Someone whispered. Ava didn't look up. She already knew what that meant, too. The flashlight flickered again, then steadied. The doctor holding it whispered, "Generators completely dead." Ava set her jaw. "Then we finish before the poison finishes him." She reached deeper, exposing tissue no civilian or would ever allow without imaging. The surgeon flinched. "You can't just—" "I can," Ava said. "And I am." The SEAL on the table groaned, a low sound that cut through the room. His hand twitched. "He's waking," someone said. "Good," Ava replied. "Stay with me." She spoke to him now, voice low and controlled. "Don't fight. I've got you." The words weren't for comfort. They were commands. Battlefield commands. The surgeon caught it, felt it. His voice dropped. "You talk like you expect him to listen." "I do." The radio crackled again, louder now. "Shooter likely sabotaged main transformer. Evidence of water in generator tanks. This was planned." A murmur rippled through the room. Someone cursed. Someone else crossed themselves. Ava felt something cold settle in her chest. Planned meant intention. Intention meant pattern. She finished neutralizing the wound and pressed gauze into place. "Hold pressure. Exactly like this." The surgeon mirrored her hands, unsure but obedient. Ava stepped back half a pace. The SEAL's breathing evened. Just enough. Not stable, but alive. For now. "Who are you?" the surgeon asked again. Quieter this time. "Because no nurse learns this." Ava finally looked at him. Her eyes were steady, distant. "You don't learn this," she said. "You survive it." Before he could respond, a new voice cut through the dark. "We need her." Everyone turned. 2 Navy SEALs stood in the doorway, silhouettes against faint emergency glow from the hall, weapons low but ready, faces hard, focused. "The shooter's still inside," one of them said. "We need every detail." Their eyes locked on Ava. She didn't flinch. "I'll help," she said, "but not until he's safe." One SEAL glanced at the table, then back at her. "He's one of ours." "So am I," Ava replied without thinking. The room went silent. The surgeon stared at her. "What did you just say?" Ava realized what she'd said too late. She closed her eyes for half a second, then opened them. "Give me 2 minutes," she said. "Then I'll walk you through how he was shot, why the poison was used, and where your guy went next." The SEAL nodded once. 2 minutes, as Ava worked, memory crept in uninvited. A night with no moon, a mess hall that smelled wrong, laughter that stopped too fast, plates half-touched. She remembered choosing sleep over food, her stomach hollow, her head heavy. She remembered waking up alone. She pushed it down. Not now. She finished securing the wound and stepped back. "He'll hold if you don't move him," she said. "If you do, he dies." The SEAL leaned in, studying her face. "You know that for sure?" "Yes." "How?" Ava met his eyes. "Because I've buried the ones who didn't listen." The SEAL straightened. "All right, you're with us." As they moved into the hallway, Ava pointed without hesitation. "Transformer access is through the south maintenance corridor. Generator room's secondary hatch was forced, not picked. Shooter knew hospital layout." The SEAL exchanged a look with his teammate. "That's not public knowledge." Ava kept walking. "It is if you've done recon." They followed her lead through dark corridors, lit by phone screens and emergency glow. Footprints, damp patches near a door, a smell of fuel and metal. "He doubled back," Ava said softly. "He wanted us to find the damage first." They found him 2 floors down, hiding in a supply room, hands shaking, not with fear but with rage. When they pulled him out, his eyes locked on Ava. Recognition flared. So did hatred. "That's her," he spat. "The one who lived." Ava's chest tightened. The SEALs dragged him away without another word. Back in the OR, power flickered once, twice, then stayed. Lights roared back to life, machines beeped. The world rushed in like it had never left. The surgeon looked around, then at Ava, really looked at her. "You were going to do all that," he said slowly, "without a single machine." Ava nodded. I have before. The seal on the table stirred. His eyes cracked open. He focused on her face. Then he raised his hand, weak, shaking, and saluted. No one breathed. Ava didn't return it. She just pressed his shoulder gently back down. Rest, she said. You're not done yet? The surgeon swallowed hard. Later, when the room finally exhaled, he found his voice again. They'll want answers. Ava wiped her hands, already pulling away. They always do. She paused at the door, not turning back. If you're still standing here wondering how fast you judge the quiet one, she said softly, you should sit with that. Then she left. If this made you rethink who you'd trust when the lights go out, comment, never judge. The hospital felt different with the lights back on. Too bright, too clean, like it was pretending nothing had happened. Ava stood just outside the operating room, hands still red beneath hastily scrubbed gloves, watching staff rush past her with clipboards and questions they didn't know how to ask yet. The Navy SEAL team moved with purpose down the corridor, escorting the shooter in restraints, his head down but his eyes still sharp, still burning. He didn't look defeated. He looked satisfied. That's him? One of the surgeons whispered. Ava nodded once. That's him? The surgeon hesitated. How are you so sure? Ava didn't answer right away. She was listening to the cadence of boots, to the low murmur of radios, to the tone of the man being dragged away. She recognized it, the confidence of someone who believed the damage was already done. He expected the poison to finish the job, she said finally. The blackout was insurance. The surgeon's face drained of color. You're saying this whole thing was designed to kill him without leaving fingerprints? Ava finished. And to look like equipment failure. Down the hall, the SEALs stopped abruptly. One of them pressed a hand to his earpiece, listening, then swore under his breath. What is it? Ava asked. Shooter says he didn't work alone, the SEAL replied. Claims there's a second failsafe. A cold weight settled in Ava's stomach. What kind of failsafe? The surgeon asked. Ava was already moving. The kind you don't announce. They reached the security desk just as a tech looked up, panic etched across his face. We've got interference on internal systems, he said. Something's looping our feeds. The SEAL team split instantly, 2 heading for surveillance, 2 for the generator room again. Ava stopped in the hallway, heart pounding, memories clawing up from places she'd buried them. This feeling, the sense of being hunted inside a place that was supposed to be safe, it was too familiar. She followed the SEALs without asking. The surveillance room was chaos. Screens replayed the same 30 seconds on a loop. Corridors empty. Doors opening and closing. No sign of the man who'd just been captured. He wanted us to think it was over, Ava murmured. One of the SEALs glanced at her. You're thinking secondary target. Yes. Who? She swallowed. Me. The SEAL didn't question it. He just nodded once, sharp and decisive. Lock it down. They moved fast, radios crackling, doors sealing. Ava's pulse thundered in her ears, not from fear, but from recognition. She'd been here before, not this hospital, not these walls, but the feeling of being the last variable someone hadn't accounted for. They found the device tucked behind a maintenance panel near the ICU. Small, crude, timed. Ava recognized it instantly. It's not meant to explode, she said. It's meant to inject. The SEAL crouched beside her. Inject what? She pointed to a thin line running into the oxygen system. A secondary aerosol toxin, slow-acting, designed to finish anyone already compromised. The SEAL swore softly. Can you stop it? Ava nodded. I can slow it, but you'll need to reroute oxygen manually. They worked together, hands moving in practiced silence. No wasted words, no hesitation. When the device finally went still, Ava leaned back against the wall, breath coming hard. For a moment, no one spoke. Then one of the SEALs broke the silence. You did this kind of thing overseas, didn't you? Ava closed her eyes. Images flooded in. Red dust, overturned tables, men slumped over plates they never finished. The sound she'd made when she realized she was alone. Yes, she said quietly. The SEAL studied her face. You were with them. With who? The surgeon asked, having caught up. The unit that went dark 3 years ago, the SEAL replied. No survivors reported. Ava's jaw tightened. That report was wrong. The surgeon stared. You're saying... I survived, Ava said. That's all. They returned to the operating room together. The SEAL on the table was awake now, eyes open, breathing steadier. When he saw Ava, something in his expression shifted. Not relief, not gratitude. Recognition. You're Iron Wolf, he said hoarsely. The room froze. The surgeon blinked. Iron... What? Ava felt the name hit her like a physical blow. She hadn't heard it spoken aloud in years, not since the desert, not since she'd sworn never to answer to it again. I told you, she said softly. Rest. The SEAL shook his head weakly. You walked us out when everything went black, he said. I remember your voice. Ava turned away. You're mistaken. I'm not, he replied. They said Iron Wolf went down with the rest of the squad. Ava's chest tightened. They were wrong. Silence settled over the room, heavy and reverent. The surgeon cleared his throat. You were a medic? Yes. And the rest? He pressed. Ava met his gaze for the first time, eyes hard. They were poisoned in their own mess. I wasn't hungry that night. The words landed like a dropped tray. Loud, ugly, impossible to ignore. I woke up, she continued, voice steady despite the tremor beneath it. And there was no one left to save. The SEAL on the table swallowed. You still blame yourself. Ava didn't answer. Outside, the shooter screamed as he was loaded into a transport vehicle. His voice echoed down the corridor sharp and broken. You should have died with them. Ava flinched. The SEAL's hand tightened weakly on the sheet. He didn't win, he said. You're still here. Ava looked at him then, really looked, at the man she'd saved in the dark, at the uniform, at the future she'd tried to outrun. I don't feel like winning, she said. The surgeon stepped back, overwhelmed. Why are you here? He asked. Why a civilian hospital? Ava's answer was simple. Because people bleed everywhere. Before anyone could respond, alarms flared again. Not medical this time. Security alarms, the sharp, unmistakable sound of breach warnings. One of the SEALs raised his radio. We've got movement in the East Wing. Unknown. Ava's instincts screamed. That's where the recovery ward is, she said. The SEAL nodded grimly. And where your patient will be moved next. Ava turned back toward the operating table, heart racing. The SEAL met her eyes, understanding dawning. They're not done, he said. No, Ava replied. They're not. As the team moved to intercept, Ava followed because whatever was coming next had been waiting for her since the night she woke up alone. And this time, she wasn't going to run from it. The East Wing felt wrong the moment Ava stepped into it. Not dark, just off. The lights were on now, humming softly overhead, but the air carried the sharp tang of disinfectant layered over something older and heavier. Fear lingered here. It clung to the walls, to the curtains pulled too tight around empty beds, to the nurses who moved too quickly and spoke too quietly, like they were afraid the building itself might be listening. Ava's boots sounded too loud on the floor. She slowed without thinking, senses stretched thin, every instinct she'd buried years ago clawing back to the surface. The alarms had stopped, but the memory of them still rang in her ears. This was the moment after the blast, after the scramble, when the enemy made their last move. They're not done, she murmured. The SEAL beside her nodded, hand brushing the grip of his weapon. Agreed. They reached the recovery ward just as a crash echoed from the far end of the corridor. A cart slammed into a wall. A figure in hospital scrubs bolted toward the stairwell, shoes squealing against the polished floor. Contact! Someone shouted. The man ran hard, but panic makes people sloppy. He cut the corner too fast, slipped on a freshly mopped patch of tile, and went down with a grunt that knocked the breath from his lungs. The SEALs were on him instantly, pinning him to the floor, cuffs snapping closed around his wrists. He thrashed, face twisted with rage. You should have let him die, he spat. That was the plan. Ava crouched in front of him, close enough to see the whites of his eyes. You planned a lot of things, she said quietly. None of them worked. Recognition flickered across his face, ugly and sharp. You, he hissed. You weren't supposed to be there. Ava felt the words land like a punch she'd been bracing for her whole life. You poisoned my squad, she said, voice steady despite the tremor beneath it. You thought you could finish the job here. His laugh cracked, brittle and broken. You lived, he said. That wasn't part of it. She stood without another word. There was nothing left to take from him. The SEALs dragged him away, his protests echoing down the hall until the doors swallowed the sound. Only then did Ava's shoulders sag, just a fraction. Down the corridor, the wounded SEAL was being wheeled into the recovery ward under guard. His face was pale, but the worst of the gray had left his skin. The poison had taken its toll, draining him in ways blood loss alone never could. But he was breathing on his own now, alive, holding. When Ava stepped to his bedside, his eyes found her immediately, sharp despite the haze of pain medication. You came back, he said hoarsely. I said I would, she replied, checking the IV, adjusting the flow with the same careful precision she'd used in the dark. Her hands didn't shake. They never did when it mattered. He studied her face, then the blood-stained cuffs of her sleeves. You didn't have to, he said. After everything? Yes, Ava said simply. I did. Silence settled between them. Not awkward, not heavy. Familiar. The kind that only exists between people who understand what it costs to stay alive. The surgeon hovered near the door, uncertain. They're asking questions, he said finally. Administration, military liaison. They want to know who you really are. Ava didn't look up. They don't need to. The SEAL's lips twitched into a faint smile. They already do. Word spread fast after that. It always did. Someone talked. Someone else listened. By the time the sun began to rise over the city, the story had taken on a life of its own, fragments of truth stitched together with awe and disbelief. A nurse who operated in the dark, a SEAL who survived poison and sabotage, a hospital that nearly became a tomb. A Navy admiral arrived just after dawn. He cut a stark figure in the ward. White uniform immaculate against the scuffed floors and rumpled curtains. He listened as the SEAL spoke, recounting the night in a voice that grew steadier with each sentence. The admiral didn't interrupt, didn't question, didn't look away when the details turned ugly. When the SEAL finished, the admiral turned to Ava. I knew your unit, he said. People said they were unstoppable. Ava swallowed. Until we weren't. The admiral shook his head. Until you were betrayed, that's not failure. She looked past him, out the window where morning light spilled across the city. I wasn't there when they ate, she said. I should have been. You were exhausted, he replied gently. You chose sleep. That choice saved your life. Ava's jaw tightened. It cost me theirs. The admiral held her gaze. Survival isn't guilt, he said. It's responsibility. The words hit harder than any accusation ever had. Ava felt something in her chest loosen, just a little. Across the room, the wounded SEAL shifted. With effort, he pushed himself upright, ignoring the quiet protests of the monitors. His arm trembled as he raised it, but he held the salute long enough for everyone to see. It was perfect. The room froze. Ava felt the weight of it settle over her. The respect, the recognition she'd avoided for years. She stepped forward and pressed his arm gently back down. Don't, she said softly. You're still healing. He smiled anyway. Iron Wolf, he said not loudly, not for the room, just for her. She closed her eyes for a brief moment, then opened them. The name no longer burned the way it used to. It still hurt, but it didn't own her. Later, when the ward quieted and the hospital slipped into a cautious calm, the admiral found Ava standing alone near a window, watching the city wake up. There's a place for you, he said. Veteran care, training, people who need someone who understands what happens when everything goes dark. Ava considered it. For the first time, the offer didn't feel like a summons or a sentence. I don't want rank, she said. I don't want medals. You won't get them, the admiral replied. You'll get work. She nodded. Then I'll think about it. By mid-morning, power was fully restored. The hospital hummed again, pretending it had never failed. Administrators issued statements. Reports were filed. The shooter was gone, taken somewhere far from Ava's life. She packed her things quietly, the way she always did. As she walked past the recovery ward one last time, the SEAL caught her eye. You didn't disappear this time, he said. Ava paused. Neither did you. Outside, the sun felt too bright, too forgiving. Ava stepped into it anyway. The past hadn't vanished, but it no longer chased her through the dark. She hadn't outrun it. She'd faced it and survived again. If you stayed with this story to the very end, I want to ask you something. Honestly, how many people do we pass every day without seeing? How many quiet ones carry battles we'll never know about? If this story made you pause, if it made you rethink who you might trust when the lights go out, please subscribe. It costs nothing, but it helps stories like this, stories about quiet heroes, keep finding their way into the light.